What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazik, aka Franchise Player, and I'm here with another episode of Ask FP, aka Mazik Speaks. If you want to be a part of this whole deal, all you got to do is send me a question on Twitter. That's at Unique Mazik, UNIQUEMAZIQUE, and hashtag AskFP. And I will try to get to your question on Wednesday, which is what today is, and we'll go through it. We have gone back to naming the videos, what is basically the question of the week. So if you can see at the title of this video, you know what the question of the week is. I had to trim it down a little bit, so we're definitely going to get into that. But before we go into the question, the first question or the question of the week, obviously we got to give you guys an update on the channel and as well the project. And if you've been following me, you know what the project is. I don't even have to say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. The NBA 2K17 Legends Roster 3 project is very much near completion. We got 5 teams left to go. So there's a lot of stuff that's already been done. It's kind of hard for me to kind of explain, because I say 5 teams, but I don't have to do every player on all 5 teams. So it's kind of weird to explain, but to break it down, pretty much I got to do parts of the Sacramento Kings. Well, of these 5 teams, I have to do parts of them. Okay. So Sacramento, San Antonio, Toronto, Utah, and Washington. So some part of those 5 teams has to be done. And I am definitely still looking at this being done on May 1st so that the roster will be released on that day. I don't know exactly what time during that day, but that is still the day. Working on it on a daily basis. Obviously, as you can also probably tell, this has slowed down my videos on the channel, period. Because I'm, trying to have my hands in too many different pots. Wasn't going to finish this roster on time. Was already late because of the few things. And then obviously most recently it was late because of the ruining of the file. So the Road to the Show series with Dante Withenshaw is coming back, as well as the Cubs series, as well as Me and Junior's My League. All of that's coming back. But like I said, from going forward, anytime you see a series on my channel, you can bet it's going to finish, because I'm actually not even going to start putting the videos out until the series is finished. That way I can do it like real live network television, upload the entire series, and then essentially you just got to wait for it to play itself out. More likely, you're going to probably see 2 episodes a week from each one of those series once they're actually uploaded. And I won't even have to worry about rushing, trying to kill myself to make sure that I get the video out on time, which is something that's been happening. I won't even have to worry about that. It'll be bam, just done. So what else was I going to tell you guys? Also, going to be doing a couple other little things I like to do. And this is kind of, essentially, I'm just going to be transparent with y'all. These other videos are going to be videos that I think are dope, but they're just one-off kind of things that I do in the meantime, while in between series and projects and reviews and stuff like that. So hopefully you like it, and that'll be that. So without further ado, let's jump into this first question, which comes from my main man, Pal Stirrer. And I've asked this before. Tell me if I'm not saying this right. Is it Pil Styrer or Palais Styrer? I've been saying Pal Stirrer forever, and I really looked at it and I realized that might not be right. So I hope you tell me if I'm saying it wrong, because it's like really not good if you just gonna let me say it wrong. So at any rate, now you see the question, which is the subject of the video. I couldn't include everything that he was asking here, but just to go over it from front to back, he says PG13 versus LeBron James, Ben Simmons versus Giannis Antetokounmpo, Lonzo Ball versus John Wall, and Joel Embiid versus Nikola Jokic. Who are better in 3 years, and who is the best of all? So I had to look at this a couple times to see exactly what you're saying. So essentially, you're asking 2 questions for each pairing. So you're saying, so who is going to be the best in 3 years between Paul George and LeBron? Between, that's a separate question. Then who's the best in 3 years between Ben Simmons and Giannis? Then who's the best in 3 years between Lonzo and Wall? And then who's the best in 3 years between Embiid and Jokic? Then also who will be the best of all in each one of those pairings? Okay, so that's what I understand. I think I got it. So to answer the first one, Paul George versus LeBron, this is totally, honestly, man, this is totally about who stays healthy. That's what this is about. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. That's not what I meant. This is total. What I should have said is this is totally about how much does LeBron's game diminish over the next 3 years, right? So LeBron is 32 years old already. He's going to be 33 at the end of this year. On December 30th, he'll be 33 years old. That's like, oh my God, just to think about, right? It's crazy. So in 3 years, we're talking about a 35, 36-year-old LeBron James. Now, Paul George is obviously much younger. I believe Paul George is 26. If I'm not, yes, he's 26. So we're talking about 29-year-old Paul George. You know, Paul George's birthday is coming up actually on May 2nd. He'll be 27. So 30-year-old Paul George. 30-year-old Paul George or LeBron at 36. It really depends on how much LeBron falls off. If LeBron sees a steep decline, which is somewhat difficult for me to kind of accept or think about with LeBron because he does take such great care of himself. I mean, he's 33, 32, 32, 33 already. He's still a freak. He's still a freak. I really, it's a really difficult question to answer, but I'm going to actually say I don't know. I'm going to say Paul George. I'm going to say Paul George will be better in 3 years. I think LeBron will still be great. And I think LeBron will be getting credit for being, people will be calling him the GOAT for real at that point, because a lot of the hating will have died down and so on and so forth. So people will stop with that and they'll be really because they'll be seeing the end of his career coming. So now it's time to actually give that appreciation, kind of like Kobe, right? But I think if you were to compare the players, you know, side by side, I think you probably end up saying that Paul George is a better player. Now, of all, yes, LeBron will still be the better player. LeBron will still be the better player. That won't be a question at all, I think. If you look at accomplishments and overall ability, everything, all that considered, I think LeBron will still be a greater player between those two. Ben Simmons against Giannis Antetokounmpo. This all comes down to health for Ben Simmons to even be in the conversation. We haven't seen anything from Ben yet. Giannis is already turned himself into what I believe is a top 10 player, top 12 player in the NBA already right now. Some people might even argue it's even higher than that. Ben Simmons is yet to dribble a basketball, grab a rebound, dish a pass, or make a shot in the league. But I do think Ben Simmons is going to be an excellent player as long as he stays healthy. I'm going to say Ben Simmons in 3 years will be a better player than Giannis. And I do not mean that as a slight to Giannis. Giannis is a freak. Giannis, and I don't mean that just in the sense of his nickname. This dude is really an outstanding, amazing player. But I'm going to tell you one thing that I feel like Ben Simmons has above Giannis, and that's natural basketball instincts and basketball IQ. Ben Simmons is a very smart basketball player. The fact that he's going to get an opportunity to play point guard, which I don't know if you guys have heard that yet, but the fact that he's going to get an opportunity to play point guard very early in his career, I think is going to, one, help him from a standpoint of understanding the game from a different from a different vantage point. I also think that is going to give him an opportunity to be appreciated for the dynamic talent that he is earlier in his career. There was a lot of talk about Giannis being able to play point guard when he first got into the league, but it took a while before coaches would allow him to run an offense. He still doesn't do it 100%. Ben Simmons is getting the keys to Philly from the beginning, and I think that's going to help him a lot. So in 3 years, I think he'll be better, and when it's all said and done, I think Ben Simmons will be better. Lonzo Ball versus John Wall. Man, this is tough because I really love Lonzo Ball, and I think that Lonzo Ball is Jason Kidd with a jump shot. I really do believe that. But I still don't know if I can put him ahead of John Wall because of what John Wall has turned himself into. John Wall has become that almost perfect style point guard. The jump shot could still stand to get a little bit better, a little bit more consistent, especially when we're talking about from three-point range. And I'm just taking a quick look at his three-point shooting. I know that he's improved some from deep, but he's still not what you would call a deadly three-point shooter. This year, he shot 32%, 33%, which is not even a career high for him. Last year, tied his career high when he made 35%, which is a good percentage. But he upped his overall field goal percentage by taking a few less threes. He's an 80% free throw shooter. He averaged a career high in assists, a career high in steals, and a career high in points at 23 points a game. So, I mean, you're averaging 23, 10, and 2 as a point guard. I mean, with a assist to turnover ratio that is almost 3-1, I think you're doing quite a job, right? Shooting 45% from the field. Lonzo Ball, I think, is going to be an excellent player, like I said, but I would have to say John Wall is still better in 3 years, because Lonzo's going to be 22 in 3 years. John Wall will be still in his prime at 29. I'd say John Wall will still be a better player. Now, when it's all said and done, that's a difficult one. I think a lot of it depends on where Lonzo goes, because Lonzo needs to go to a team that has shooters already, has a decent, viable big man, because Lonzo's not the kind of guy that I think can take over a game with his scoring. And so that's a different situation there. But I do think a lot of it's going to depend on what team he actually plays for. But what I just said, actually, I think still separates him from Wall, because Wall has the ability to take over a game with his scoring. And I don't think that Lonzo will ever have that. I don't know that he will. Like I called him Jason Kidd with a jump shot, right? Now, Jason Kidd has made some big shots in his career, right? But I don't think that anyone would ever say that Kidd was the kind of guy who could take over a game with his scoring. Like, yes, did he have some games where he scored a good amount of points? Absolutely. Sure he did. He did some of those in the playoffs. I mean, there was a 35-point game when he was with the Nets against Washington. But I still, he's still more of a guy that runs an offense and more of a guy that's a defender, gets other people involved. John Wall does that, and he can get other people involved. But if John Wall needs to go for 35 or 40, he can do it, and there's no question. It won't even be a shock when he does it. So I would still say John's probably going to be a better overall player, but I think it could be close. The last pairing that Palster gave me was Joel Embiid against Nikola Jokic. And this has totally everything to do with Joel Embiid staying healthy. If Joel Embiid is healthy, to me, this is barely a contest. I like Jokic. Don't get me wrong. Jokic is a good player. He's a good player. But Jokic, put it like this, there is nothing that Nikola Jokic can do that Embiid cannot. And for the most part, everything that Jokic does well, Embiid does better. The only question is, will Embiid be healthy? Because if Embiid is healthy, to be honest, comparing him to Nikola Jokic is an insult type of a comparison. I understand why you would do it. They're both big men who have just finished their first year in the NBA. I get that. But Embiid is an absolute superstar waiting to happen if he can stay healthy. And superstar. Like, Jokic had better rebounding numbers, but I believe that if Embiid played full-time closer to the basket, and if he didn't have as much versatility as he has offensively, I'm telling you, man, if health stays together for the 76ers next year, they're gonna be something else to play with. We got Ben Simmons at the point guard. You got Jokic. You got Dario Saric. I mean, this team is something. And then you got whoever they pick in the lottery. Oh my God, guys, come on. The 76ers are going to be pretty exciting, but it's all about staying healthy. I think Embiid's better in 3 years if he's healthy, and I think he's better all overall if he is healthy. So that was a very long question of the week, but it is now time to go to the next question. And this one comes from Victor Daniel Torres. And he asked, what is the biggest surprise in the playoffs, NBA playoffs? I'm assuming he means NBA playoffs so far this year. And I would have to say the biggest surprise for me, there's two things. The first biggest surprise is the overall impact that Rajon Rondo has had on the Chicago Bulls. I think it's pretty amazing how much success he was able to take the Bulls to, or lead the Bulls to. And speaking of that, they come on in like 6 minutes. I think that's pretty amazing. Secondly, how bad the Bulls' backups are is I mean, Jerian Grant, Michael Carter Williams, I mean, have been dreadful, just dreadful. You understand me? Dreadful. Isaiah Cannon, I'm interested in seeing what he does tonight. I think that he could be a spark for the Bulls. And I think for some reason I think he's going to have a good shooting night. I don't know why, but I think he's going to have a good shooting night. So it's going to be interesting. But Rondo's impact Rondo didn't have a great season with the Bulls. It was some peaks and valleys. Down the stretch, he played much better. He took a really good handle with the second unit, got back in the starting lineup, and just overall found himself and pretty much salvaged what looks like a bad year. It was a bad time to have a bad year because it's his contract year. But he's really stepped up and really taken control. The second thing that surprises me is the fact that the Grizzlies have been as competitive with the Spurs as they have been. They've gotten the game back to grit and grind. David Fizdale is an outstanding head coach in terms of, and yeah, I know he's getting a lot of attention for the rant, and it was a well-placed rant, and it was really good overall for marketing a small market team like them and a head coach that flies somewhat under the radar. But aside from that, I really like the types of the defensive adjustments that the Grizzlies made to handle the Spurs. I like the fact that the way that they were able to kind of impose their will and their physicality back into the series, and that's how they've gotten back into it. And they're shooting the ball more freely and changing their style up a little bit, just enough offensively to score enough points to win these games. So those are my two biggest surprises. The next question comes from, I'm gonna tell you in a second. This is from Ty Bud, and he says, we hear questions of who's the GOAT and the all-time top 5 daily, but who is the greatest sidekick of all time in the NBA? Now, to me, to be a great sidekick is not just about being the second most talented player on the team. Being a great sidekick is about stepping up when it's your opportunity or when it's your time to step up and really shining in that secondary role and being okay with being in that secondary role. Because that's a big deal, because you can be a second fiddle, but if that you don't like playing second fiddle, it ends up circumventing what is going on with the team. So a lot of people may not want to consider him a sidekick, and I'm throwing out some nominees before I say who it is, in my opinion. A lot of people might not have considered him a sidekick because he was there before him, but Dwayne Wade was LeBron's sidekick during the 4 NBA Finals appearances. And I thought he was outstanding because everybody knows how great Dwayne Wade was, but he accepted that role. And wow, was he outstanding and amazing in several different situations for that team, led to 2 championships. Obviously, Kobe was a second fiddle to Shaq. But Kobe did not like being second fiddle. So for me, that would eliminate him in that situation. I'm going to go way back. Hal Greer was a second fiddle to Wilt Chamberlain when Chamberlain finally got his first NBA championship when he was playing with the Philadelphia 76ers. So he started off with the Philadelphia Warriors, ended up going to the Philadelphia 76ers. With the 76ers, where he actually won a championship, his first championship. And that team with Hal Greer was an outstanding team, one of the better teams in NBA history. Greer was a lights out 20-point per game scorer, but he was a guard, point guard, shooting guard, but he could fill it up. When Chamberlain got there, he had to learn how to play with the most dominant force in basketball, period. And he did that, and they won a championship. That was a big deal. That was a major deal. And so I think he deserves some credit for that. But if I had to tell you who I think is the best sidekick of all time, it would undoubtedly be Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen to Michael Jordan. I mean, we're talking about the original, the most accurate description of Batman and Robin was Mike and Scottie. I mean, Scotty's personality was one that was not necessarily wanting to be Batman. He was fine being in the Robin situation, but it wasn't about a lack of confidence, I don't think. Scotty knew how good he was and how great he was, but Scotty was such a team guy. He was willing to do everything that it wasn't so much that Mike couldn't do, because Mike really didn't have many weaknesses, but everything that needed to be done to fill in the gaps or fill in areas and to give Mike the proper support, Scotty was able and ready, willing, and able to do it. And they rode that partnership to 6 championships in 8 years. And a lot of people don't realize this, but Michael Jordan never won a playoff series. I'm not talking about a championship. I'm not talking about a finals. Michael Jordan never won a playoff series until Scottie Pippen got there. So just think about that. He never won a playoff series without Scottie Pippen. That's something. That's something to absolutely consider. All right, our next question comes from Jared Young, and Jared Young says, does Chris Paul deserve a statue outside of the Staples Center? Wow, a statue. There is no question Chris Paul has been absolutely fantastic as a member of the Los Angeles Clippers. He has, and obviously the Clippers share the Staples Center with the Lakers. But in my opinion, and if you have any question about how good Chris Paul has been with the Clippers, I mean, his numbers are almost identical with the Clippers to what they were with the Hornets. With the Hornets, he averaged 18.7 points a game, 9.9 assists, 2.4 steals. He shot 36% from the three-point line, 47% from the field. With the Clippers, he's averaged 18.8, so a tenth of a point higher. He's averaged 2.2 steals. He shot 88% from the free throw line. He shot just under 38% from the field, and 4/10 of a percentage point better from the field. So almost identical. He's been outstanding. He's a no doubt 100% first ballot Hall of Fame. But in my opinion, to be to a place where you deserve a statue, you got to win a championship. And my man hasn't won a championship. So to me, the short and quick and easy answer to that is no, he does not deserve a statue. All right. Our next question comes in from Daniel, the one-legged gamer Daniel. All right. He said, oh, well, this isn't actually a question. This is just a nice thing somebody said. He said, just read your article about building 5-tool pro wrestlers. Very nice work. Looking forward to follow-up article today. I appreciate you very much, sir. I wrote an article about what defines a 5-tool wrestler. And essentially, I may do a video about it, talking about it, but I have actually had this conversation with some actual WWE guys, and I've asked them, what do you think makes a 5-tool wrestler? Because you've heard of a 5-tool baseball player. That's a guy who hits for average, hits for power. has a good glove in the outfield, has a good arm in the outfield, and can steal bases. So in wrestling, I had my own concept of what makes up a 5-tool guy. And I also named the people who I think are 5-tool performers in the WWE. So that's what he's referring to. You can check it out at the link in the description of this video. And I may, like I said, do a video discussing that at a later time. All right, next up, we got Michael Rigsby Jr. And Michael Rigsby Jr. says, will LeBron James not truly be appreciated until he is retired? Now, that's actually very similar to what a point I made in the question earlier. I think it's going to happen a little bit before he retires. I think it's going to be right around the time he's about to retire is when you're going to start hearing people start really giving him his credit for being one of the 2 to 3 greatest players to ever play the game. I mean, really, if we really are being honest and we stop the hating, he's one of the 2 to 3 greatest players to ever live, and ultimately we'll get to a point where that just won't be denied. That won't be anything anybody can deny. And, hating only lasts for so long. It only lasts for so long. It doesn't sustain itself very well. So the next question comes from Michael Rigsby Jr. He says, with Bryce Harper getting off to a hot start after a lackluster 2016, do you see him actually getting the $500 million deal? I think that it's possible. I do think that it is possible. I think that there's a lot of money going to be shelled out to some of the best or top baseball young stars, because baseball is chock full of superstars who are like 28 and under right now. I mean, there are a ton of them. I mean, you're looking at like with Trout and Harper and so many people on the Cubs roster, Francisco Lindor, Carlos Carrera, all those. There's a lot of them, right? And they're going to get paid. I think it's possible that Bryce Harper could get a $500 million deal. I do think it's possible. People are going to hate it, and they're going to try to rip him to shreds for it, which is not his fault. You wouldn't take it if they gave it to you. But yeah, I do think that I think it's a chance, definitely a chance he can get it. All right, next up, I think we got somebody else making reference to the 5-tool wrestler. Yes, this was EPW. They have their own wrestling podcast. I really appreciate their exposure here. It said, check this amazing article out by Unique Musique, Raw, SmackDown Live, AJ Styles, and the WWE's 18 active pro 5-tool wrestlers. So I did the article about the guys who I thought, guys and girls, who I thought were 5-tool performers. And AJ Styles is obviously one of those. All right, so let's go to our next question. And it comes from Simon Torby Sunland. He says, has LeBron James, we have a lot of LeBron talk today. It's kind of crazy. Has LeBron James exceeded the expectations you had for him when he first came into the league? Exceeded the expectations? I would say yes. He has exceeded my expectations, and my expectations for LeBron were very high. I have followed him since he was 15 years old on the cover of the Sports Illustrated that said Chosen One. That's the first time I found out about him, and I have followed his career and his development ever since. And as great as I thought he was going to be, he's actually even better. He's actually even better. If you want to talk about child prodigies, and when you're talking about a kid that's 14 to 15 years old that was getting the attention LeBron was getting, that does qualify as a child prodigy. We don't think about it a lot with baseball. With basketball, or with sports, period. We often think about it in other situations. But if you're a child, technically, legally a child, and you are as dynamic as some of these athletes were when they were children, you are a child prodigy. And LeBron was a child prodigy. And quite often we see child prodigies not live up to what we expected or thought they could have done. And LeBron has done all of that. I mean, he's done all of it. Multiple MVPs, multiple championships, multiple NBA Finals MVPs, no off the court issues and all that kind of garbage, no arrest, no any of that stuff. He has been ridiculous in every way, shape, or form. The dude has been ridiculous. We got people, he's got haters for sure, but he's been fantastic. and I don't understand how anybody could not say he has lived up or exceeded expectations. All right, our next question comes in from Matt Price, and Matt Price says, favorite Lupe album? I still play Food and Liquor once a month. Now I got to tell y'all where this question actually came from. I was listening to Dragos Light, which is Lupe's new album. He does have a Dragos is coming out, the full version, and he admits that Dragos Light is like a lot of its older music. Man, honestly, I tweeted about it. That album was really bad to me, man. If you guys are Lupe fans, then you know what I mean with this reference. I tweeted this out too. It sounded like he made an album full of Stack That Cheese. And Stack That Cheese is the song that Lupe refers to in one of his best songs, which is Hip Hop Saved My Life. And it's like when you hear him telling the story in there, he's talking about a guy who was an MC who actually was pretty good, but I think I call it Dragos. It's Drogos Light. The guy was actually pretty good, but he had made this song called Stack That Cheese that everybody seemed to love, but he kind of knew that it wasn't necessarily like, what do I want to call it? It wasn't like the most, what do you want to call it? It wasn't like what we would call like real serious hip hop. It was like that old commercial kind of garbage, but it just had a nice beat and it was catchy, and people kept going Stack That Cheese. Now obviously this is like a fictitious song, but the rumor or the word is that the song is based off of Slim Thug, but he kept pushing Stack That Cheese. The person in this story in the song Hip Hop Saved My Life, he kept pushing Stack That Cheese because it was making money, and the dude was hungry and he needed to eat, so he kept pushing Stack That Cheese, even though there was other songs that he knew that were probably better, or they were better from an artistic standpoint. So when I listen to Drogos Light, it really sounds like Lupe made his own Stack That Cheese, because there's so many songs that sound like they should have been by Young Thug or Lil Yachty or something like that. And I'm like, wait a minute, bro, that is not you. What is going on? I don't know what it is you're doing. So I was disappointed in the album. There's like 2 songs on it that I think are tolerable. One of them's Jump. The other one's another title with one word. I can't remember what it is. But yeah, so my favorite Lupe album, I love Food and Liquor, I do, but The Cool is that's my favorite. That's my favorite. There's so many songs on there that I like. Go Go Gadget Flow, Hip Hop Saved My Life. Man, what else do I like this on there? Superstar, I love. High Definition is decent. Just a lot. Oh, Dumb It Down. Oh, Dumb It Down. Dumb It Down is great. It's just a really good album, and so that one would be my favorite. All right, let's move on. Our next question comes from Jared Young, and Jared says, how long do you think this Golden State Warrior dynasty will last? I'm sick of it. Super teams suck. I think that the Golden State Warrior dynasty will last as long as Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, and Draymond Green are on the same team. As long as those guys are on the same team, I think they will be a dynasty. Well, I shouldn't say dynasty. They will be a team that is a perennial title contender, because those Draymond, Steph, and Klay have a specific quality or trait that is very hard to find anywhere else. The way that they can shoot the ball is special. So that gives them an element that really nobody else has. Draymond does everything else just about. He's a top-notch defender. He rebounds. He can even knock down the three with decent enough regularity. He handles the ball. He's a good passer. He is the emotional leader. He's the strength, the backbone of the team. With those three guys there, they're going to be a perennial contender. Kevin Durant, if he mixes in properly and everything and plays the way they played when they're at their best, then that's when it's like, oh my God. But I don't know if, he's definitely going to stay there, I believe, this year coming up. But those three guys, to me, Klay, Steph, and Draymond, are the real keys. Now, Klay could move on. And if Klay moves on, then Kevin Durant could slide right into his spot. And I don't think they have an issue in terms of sliding into his spot as a weapon. I just think that's just more opportunities for him and Steph. Perhaps he still continues to play the position he plays and they get another two guard that can shoot. It doesn't even have to be as dynamic as Klay, but just another two guard that can shoot. But yeah, I think Steph, Klay, and Draymond are the guys. As long as they're there, we're looking at a big time contender. All right, our next question comes from Jared Young. He says, which young NBA teams do you see emerging that may be contenders in the next 2 to 5 years? Well, one of them I mentioned already, and that was the 76ers. If the 76ers stay healthy, man, they look like a team that is really going to be an issue. I was a little bit early on my prediction about the Minnesota Timberwolves, but I do think that they are still a team on the rise. They got to figure out what's happening in point guard with Chris Dunn, but with Wiggins and with Karl Anthony Towns, those guys have the deal. We'll see how Zach LaVine comes back from the torn ACL, but I love the young talent on that team for sure. Those are the two that really jump out at me the most. But another team you got to watch out for, and they're in the playoffs right now, and they're contending, and they're doing what they got to do, is the Utah Jazz. Now, all of this depends on them maintaining the services of Gordon Hayward, but I love the nucleus that team has with Hayward and Gobert. I'm not a big Favors fan. I'm not. But I think if they get a young, dynamic point guard to play with Hayward and Gobert, you got something really dangerous, especially with Quinn Snyder as the head coach. He's an excellent, very underrated head coach. So those three teams are the three that really jump out at me like, yes, you need to watch what those guys are doing. All right, our next question. This one comes from Weston Flores. And Weston Flores says, knowing the Blue Jays struggle right now, do you think they should start rebuilding? I think baseball, obviously, baseball is a long season, and yes, they are getting it handed to them right now. I want to say they have the worst record in the major leagues. I'm double checking, but I gotta check. I gotta see what's happening. Cubs are losing 2-0. Well, I thought the Bulls started at 6:30 Central Time. No, they're gonna start to 7:30. I was wrong. But yeah, the Blue Jays are 6-14 right now, which is, yes, the worst record in the majors, I thought. Baseball is a long season, man. Things can turn around quicker than we expect, especially when you're looking at a team that for a fact these guys have the bats. They have the bats. They have the offense. I mean, they're missing a few guys that they lost from previous seasons, from last season. Mostly, I mean, just some of the production. You see, like you look at Troy Tulowitzki. Tulowitzki's not having the type of season that he had last year. Josh Donaldson's hitting well, but the run production is down. I mean, he's only played in 9 games too. So I think you got to look at injuries there on that side. But they have some guys there. I mean, and one of the biggest problems, Jose Bautista is just, oh my God, right now. I mean, Bautista's hitting 145 with a home run and 5 RBIs. I mean, that's pretty dreadful. And then on the pitching side, you got Estrada, who is, I think, definitely showing himself to be, I mean, he's looking like you got to consider him the ace. I know Stroman is the guy you're really depending on moving forward, but Estrada's pitched very well, leading the team in ERA and strikeouts. So there's some reason to be hopeful but I think they need another starting pitcher to either emerge, or they need to make a deal for one. Obviously, they're not going to be making a deal for anybody to help them right now when they're 6-14. But I do think that it's a little bit too early to be talking about rebuilding with them after being competitive recently. So I think it's a little too early. All right, let's go into our next question, which also comes from Western Flores. And he says, how do you feel about Jinder Mahal getting a title opportunity against Orton? And do you think he will surprise people? I think that Jinder Mahal is pretty solid as a worker. I think he's solid as a presence. I think his gimmick is pretty decent. He's huge now, so he has a look for sure. Here's the thing. You got a lot of people who are always talking about how Raw and SmackDown is too predictable, blah, blah, blah. Of course, so won. None of the mid-card younger guys ever gets a chance, and Jinder's not that young, but mid-carders don't get a shot and all that. So now Jinder gets a shot and it does kind of come out of nowhere, but people are not, you got some critics and they're not happy. And these are some of the same people who are talking about it not being about the action and the drama being predictable. You're never gonna please everybody. You're never gonna please everybody. You should just write your stories. And this is my message all the time to WWE bookers: just write the stories. Stop worrying about what this person said, what that person said. The fans booed this. Just write the stories. And I think I don't have a problem with Jinder Mahal. I don't, I think it's a fresh, new type of deal. We'll see what happens with it. But I don't have a problem with it all. If he was horrible, then I'd be like, come on, man. Why is Jinder Mahal here? But he's not. So it is what it is. All right. Brock Lesnar's got our next question. He has a very interesting thing here. It says, what is your top 5 rappers of all time? Also, do you think Eminem is underrated? All right, let's get ready to blow up. Ask FP. My top 5 rappers are, number 1, without a question, for me, is Eminem. That's a joke. That's not true. Number 1, without a question, for me, is Rakim. I had Eminem in my mind because that's what you just said. Rakim is number 1 for me. Number 2 for me would be Jay-Z. Number 3 for me would be Nas. And number 4 for me would be number 4. When after that top 3 gets a little wiggly for me. But number 4, I would have to give that to Big Daddy Kane. Big Daddy Kane, and I know y'all are like, what? I loved Big Daddy Kane. Big Daddy Kane was remarkable to me. I mean, just remarkable. Number 5 would be Big. So those will be my top 5. Rakim, Jay-Z, Nas, Big Daddy Kane, Big. That's my top 5. Is Eminem underrated? I would actually say the other way around. I think he is very overrated. Now, that doesn't mean that he's not dope and he hasn't done some dope stuff, because he has. Stan is still, to this day, one of the greatest written hip-hop songs that I've ever heard. It's an awesome song. He has several other songs I think were dope. Lose Yourself is amazing. It's amazing work. Just his verse in Renegade blows Jay-Z's verse out in Renegade. I mean, it's crazy. It's insane. He's got some stuff I like a lot. But here's what I'm gonna say, and this is something that a lot of people don't like, but I believe that if Eminem were black, he'd be just another good rapper. I believe that because he's white, people subconsciously lower their standards for him. Not saying he's not dope, because he is. I just went through a whole handful of songs that I like, and there's even more that I like. But if he were a black guy, he would just be another rapper. But because his quality comes in a different package than we'd ever seen before, it then forced us to subconsciously look at him in a different way. We're looking at him You're judging him. Like, this is something that people say that they shouldn't say all the time. But it's a way that a lot of people do look at things. I don't look at things like this. I don't believe, not consciously, but a lot of people say stuff like, oh, he's good for a white guy. People say that. They say that about basketball. They say that about hip hop. He's good for a white guy. And I think that's a little bit of what goes on with Eminem. Subconsciously, people don't expect him to be dope. And because he is, now he's made to be doper than he actually is. He is not a top 5 rapper, in my opinion. And obviously, all of this stuff is relative because you like what you like. There's somebody that will argue me up and down that Lil Yachty is the best rapper ever. There's somebody out there will argue me up and down that Gucci Mane is the best rapper ever. I think that's preposterous, but somebody will say that, and they will have their reasons. And I can't necessarily say that their reasons are wrong because you like what you like. But I do believe that even people who love hip hop in the way that I loved it, will say that many of them will give Eminem a little bit more credit, I think, than they would give an African-American rapper with the same skills, the same story. That's just something that I believe. So no, I do not believe that he is underrated. All right, our next question comes from, who does it come from? Oh, we did this one. This one comes from Big Kev in the house. And he says, do you think that Paul George will leave the Pacers after this early exit from the playoffs, or will he force a trade? Well, Paul cannot walk right out on the Pacers at this time. I'm going to tell you exactly what a lot of people, we have these conversations, but the information is actually there to find out, about when contracts end and so on and so forth. Paul George has a player option after next season. Next season, he's on the Pacers books for $19.5 million, a little over $19.5 million. He can become an unrestricted free agent after that season. So here's the thing. The question becomes, does Paul George want to force a trade? Because that's what he could do. He could start saying, hey, you guys, I'm going to explore my options. I don't know about coming back, and so the Pacers can be like, you know what? Well, we're not going to risk losing you for nothing. You're Paul George. There's tons of interest in you across the league. We know the Lakers, the Clippers, the Celtics, other teams would fall all over themselves to get you. We're going to entertain offers for you. And I think that a team with a high draft pick, like the Celtics, like the Lakers, Celtics have Celtics have the Nets pick this year, in a major market, are the types of teams that would be willing to go for Paul George. My back is itching. I don't know what's going on here. So the thing of it is no team's going to want to trade for Paul George unless they believe that they have a legitimate shot at signing him after or when he becomes a free agent, if he elects to become a free agent, which he's pretty much going to do, because with the new collective bargaining agreements coming, the TV deal kicking in after this season, he'd be crazy not to opt out and get more money. Even if he was going to stay with the Pacers, he'd be crazy not to do that. So he's gonna do it. I think he's going to leave. I've said this for a few years. I think there is like almost nothing in the world that's going to stop that guy from playing for the Clippers or the Lakers. I think that, that's where he's from. He wants to win. He wants to be in a major market. He knows he's one of the greatest players in the league right now. And one of the reasons that he's not as universally known as that is, one, because the Pacers haven't been very good for the last 2 to 3 years, but Indiana is not a major market, in the United States. It's a major hoops market because people know Indiana hoops is a big thing, but it's almost more on a collegiate level than it is on a pro level. Well, not almost, it is. So I think because the Pacers had an early exit, Paul wants to win. He's moving towards 30, so that clock is ticking. And also, I think he believes it's time to just turn up his overall earning potential in every way, shape, and form, and also turn up the chances of getting a championship. I mean, Paul George suffered what could have been a career-ending leg injury when he broke his leg, and that kind of probably had a shake on him in regards to him realizing his basketball mortality. It can all be over in a play, you know. Have you put yourself in the best position to accomplish your goals, both financially and professionally? And with that said, I don't think he wants to spend any more time in Indiana without a team that he believes is a championship level team. And if he goes to the Lakers, and even if they're not a championship level team, it's LA, which is home and it's a major market. I think there's the reasons right there. All right, our next question comes from, wait a minute, let's talk about it. Let's do something before we get into that. All right. All right, the next question comes from Alex, who is also known as the Neo Prankster. I'm a Neo Prankster. And he says, with recent news of layoffs at ESPN, what can the network do to bounce back? A lot of times, man, I think, you know, I don't know the specific financial situation of the ESPN right now, but I think a lot of times networks or businesses do layoffs, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the business itself is in trouble. What I believe a lot of times it can mean is that they want to make a certain level of profit. And if they're consistently, or if they're paying out as much as they're paying out in salaries, they don't get an opportunity to make that profit they want to make. It doesn't mean the business itself is in trouble or needs to bounce back. That's just what it is. So I don't know what's going on there. ESPN, the gap is being trimmed, and that's just because of social media, period. Social media, you have other websites popping up like Bleacher Report, other people, period, who are not even associated with a major network have gained credibility online. So a lot of people are getting their news, sports news, from other places. So ESPN is not necessarily the hub, right? So what I think one of the things the ESPN can do is to come up with their own type of original sports program. And they do a lot of that now, but do the more of that, more things that you have to come to ESPN to see. There's a lot, there's so many people right now doing sports news, sports rumors, reactions, prediction type information that you can get just about anywhere. And a lot of those people are viable sources. But ESPN does have the power and the money to create things that are cool to sports fans. And I think they need to do more of that to create or compel people to visit ESPN.com, to go to the channel, to subscribe and to follow all of their different social media outlets, so that they can get their ESPN fix, and ESPN can then remain as relevant as it has been for the past 3 decades or so. All right, our next question comes in from Barack Lesnar, and he says, this is actually our last question. He says, what is your favorite team logo and least favorite team logo of all time? Let's see. My favorite logo is difficult. I like a lot of logos. I do. I really love this logo. Like, I'm not a Baltimore Orioles fan, but I love this logo. I love the orange. I love the hat. I've always wanted an Orioles hat. Believe it or not, this is the first one I've ever bought. I'm not an Orioles fan. I don't hate the Orioles, but I'm not an Orioles fan. Like, I wear hats, and it has nothing to do with how much I like the team. I like the hat. You know, I love that T on the Texas Rangers hat, which is the reason why I have a Texas Rangers hat. Believe it or not, I don't even really like the Cubs logo that much. I love the Cubs, but the logo is, you know, the Blackhawks logo is awesome because it's one of the few logos that depicts a Native American in a honorable way. Because I think the worst logo, the worst logo in major professional sports right now is the Indians logo with the smiling Indian. I mean, it is so I mean, it looks like the equivalent of blackface. It looks like the equivalent of black. You might as well have a team called the Baltimore Black People or the Baltimore Africans, and essentially have a smiling black man with a jerry curl and a gold chain. To me, the Cleveland Indians logo is the equivalent of that. That might sound harsh, but to me, it is. Even the Washington football team, which I don't like to even say the R word, and a lot of Washington fans get mad when I say that, but because people are so tied to their traditions that they don't even care about how it affects somebody else. And I know there are some Native Americans that say they don't care, but there's another sect of them that says that they do care. And in my opinion, if one person or two people are legitimately offended, I mean, we're talking about a sports team, man. Change the name. Nobody's going to stop coming to Washington football games because you changed the name. Nobody's going to stop doing that. As a matter of fact, if you come up with a new logo and a new name, you're going to get a whole wave of people that's going to come out and want to buy what the new one says. It's football, man. It's not life or death. It's not people's real feelings. It's not. What you feel about a sports team don't have anything to do, or doesn't rank very highly with how somebody feels about being insulted about a potential racial epithet or a racial stereotype. That's just, crazy. So the Indians are definitely, I would say, my least favorite logo. I'm still struggling on my favorite. I like the Montreal Expos logo. I love the Toronto Blue Jays logo. I really like the Miami Heat logo. I think that flaming basketball is awesome. The New England Patriots logo, the hiking Patriot, the football of the Patriot, that's awesome. That's a really dope logo. Oh, no. I know what it is. They don't even use this logo anymore. But my favorite logo of all time was the old Tampa Bay Buccaneers logo with the pirate with the knife in his mouth. The art on that logo is phenomenal. Now, in case you're like 15 or so and you don't know what logo I'm talking about, I'm going to put it up on the screen because it is really dope. It's a really bright orange, but it's really fire. Let's see if we can get this up here. All right, so I'm going to share this with you so you can see what I'm talking about. That bad boy right there. That bad boy right there is my favorite logo. This is dope. This is on the side. It was on the side of the helmet, y'all. I mean, this was on the side of the helmet, and it was fire. Look at that. It was fire. It was really fire. I mean, they were horrible most of the years when they had this, and I don't hate the new one. It's not really good to me either, but I really do like this old helmet. I mean, the old helmet was much better to me, just period. So yeah, that's how I look at it. That's how I look at it. My favorite logo, Tampa Bay Buccaneers logo. Least favorite logo by far, Cleveland Indians. Down for that. So that's all I got for you guys today. I appreciate everybody who came out and watched and all of that. I'm going to go get ready to watch these Bulls in about 24 minutes, see what happens, see what goes on with Rondo and all of that. I haven't seen the recent reports of, I know he was going to try to play. Somebody said he was coming off the bench. We're going to find out for sure. But as always, I appreciate you watching. God bless. Peace.